Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's Microsoft Marketplace community event, part of our guest speaker series. My name is Kyle Callahan. I'm a program manager supporting Microsoft Marketplace community team. We host monthly events for partners and customers to learn and ask questions. We also share resources to keep you updated on the latest Marketplace news and announcements. If you're not already joined the Marketplace community, we welcome you to join and register. You'll get access to a library of content, community events on demand, and be able to ask questions, share your feedback, and engage with Microsoft experts and other partners through a discussion forum. We'll pop a link onto the screen. It's aka.ms/community/marketplace. Before we get started with today's presentation, reminder there will be time at the end of today's session for a live Q&A with our guest speaker, who I'll introduce in just a moment. You may submit questions directly on the community event page, and we'll address as many as we can during the time that we have today. If you're watching this recording of the event, we'll also welcome your questions on our community discussion board. I'm pleased to introduce today's guest speaker, Trunal Bhanse, CEO of Clazar. Today's session is all about turning co-sell readiness into Microsoft Marketplace revenue. Welcome, Trunal.
Thanks, Kyle. And first of all, super appreciate the opportunity, Kyle, to work with you and the larger Microsoft team and talking about co-sell readiness today. So, looking forward to the conversation. Back to you, Kyle.
Awesome. Great. I think we were ready to actually just dive into your presentation this morning. That was kind of the quick overview and introduction. So didn't want to take too much time on the housekeeping. As I said, we regularly have done these. I know you've actually been a guest in the past on some of our prior events geared towards our customers. So really appreciate you returning to speak more on the partner side today and talking about co-sell and all the things that partners can do to not just become co-sell ready, but really drive that revenue and start to get traction in how they're engaging with Microsoft teams, Microsoft sellers, partner development managers. So really excited to have you today. I think there's a lot of interest in this topic.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is a topic close to my heart, and I really enjoy talking about it. So once the slides are up on the screen, I'll start going through, our really what we call is the playbook to help turn Microsoft Marketplace into really a revenue engine. So let me go ahead and get started. First of all, let me first introduce myself. I'm Trunal. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Clazar. And I was mentioning, Kyle, backstage that I've spent a lot of time in cloud marketplaces, but also previously working at companies that do marketplaces in general. So I was the head of engineering for marketplaces, billing, and growth at Confluent before this, which is where I learned all the things about the cloud marketplaces. Prior to that, I was at Airbnb, where I led the host side engineering for the Airbnb marketplaces. What we do at Clazar is fairly simple. We help companies launch their motion on the marketplaces. We help automate private offers, co-sell, MAC tracking, reporting, and turn marketplace readiness into a repeatable revenue. And what I'm going to talk about today is the playbook that we've unlocked hundreds of customers over the past several years, unlocked for their marketplace motion, and really give you a glimpse of what it takes to be really, really successful on the marketplaces. So first of all, co-sell status is not the same as co-sell traction. There are two different things. Co-sell status, Microsoft has very clearly laid out as to what the requirements are, who can be IP co-sell eligible, and there is clearly laid out requirements in terms of how you do stuff. I would say that is step one. What most ISVs do, as you see on the screen, is they achieve the co-sell ready status, upload collateral to Partner Central, submit a few referrals, and wait for the pipeline. Right? This is what we call a step zero, and a lot of the partners are stuck here in this limbo and wondering why is their co-sell motion not, quote unquote, not working, right? Versus if you compare them against what the high performers do, they treat the entire Microsoft motion at a whole different new level. They treat readiness as the starting point, not the end game. They build operational habits around co-sell, and they engage sellers proactively. And I'll be able to show a few tips and tricks and some certain things that we can do as a partner to Microsoft in terms of helping you get more engagement from the sellers as well. What this does is accelerate deals, increases your ACV, and really automates your co-sell motion to a really smooth running engine, right? um, here's the status ladder. This is what we call the status ladder, where you are kind of walking through this ladder and getting deeper and deeper in partnership with Azure. So for example, first step is you have to be in market, which is you have to have a transactable listing on the marketplace. That's step one, or you could even call it step zero. Second is you are co-sell ready, which is, you have uploaded collateral, you've gone through the requirements, you understand what that is, and Clazar helps you get some of the operational overhead out of your plate, and we do the heavy lifting for you to get ready. Next step is the really critical one, which is the Azure IP co-sell eligible. This is the real inflection point in the journey with Microsoft. This is where your wheels of your entire flywheel with Microsoft really start turning, and you start on the journey of becoming from going from just an ISV or a partner to Microsoft to really leaned in partner who can really go deep with the partnership and have a what we call eventually sourced revenue from the entire partnership with Microsoft. And the step after that is the biz apps co-sell eligible apps co-pilot extension, and the list goes on and on. But this is what the journey looks like from start to finish. Now, if you look at what does it all mean in terms of success, right? Like, let's say if there's an ISV out there, many of the people in the audience might be wondering, okay, let's say if I do all of these things, what does good look like for me? Like, what happens when I go to my leadership team and I tell them, hey, look, I'm going to be requesting for resources, like resources in terms of people, resources in terms of tooling, like Clazar, resources in terms of budget and stuff like that. But what happens at the end of it? These are some of the numbers that we see out there in the market, and the numbers are hard to ignore. Like what you see is like the average deal size when Microsoft seller is involved is 30% larger on an average. In terms of fast close rates, the co-sell deals versus independent sales, the co-sold deals with Microsoft close at a 2x higher pace, and there are 500 Microsoft ecosystem all competing for the same attention, right? So there is like so many partners, and you have to make sure that you're standing out. How do we actually do all of that? So, but in terms of the metrics that you're talking to your leadership, like 30% larger deal sizes and 2x faster close rates, these are the metrics that we consistently see over and over again. And I mentioned IP co-sell eligible was the inflection point in my previous slide. And this is why it's an inflection point. First is your solution appears in the Microsoft's internal sales systems. Customers can apply purchases towards their Azure commitments that are also called MACC, and sellers can bring you in with full program backing. These three specific things is actually the key to unlocking the success with Microsoft in terms of co-sell. And we've, as I mentioned, we've looked at hundreds of ISVs across the board, and there's a wide spectrum of success across all of the ISVs. Some of the common things that we do see across the companies and the ISVs or the SDCs that are doing really well is these 5 things, and I'm going to go in each one of them one by one. First is build collateral for sellers, not just the buyers. Like, you really have to think of Microsoft sellers as your extended sales team, and really enable them about your solution, about your product, about your unique DNA, and really help them understand how to position you in front of an end customer. That's one. Second is make MAC eligibility a sales motion. MAC eligibility is something not that you introduce towards the end of a transaction. It is something that you ingrain deeply in your sales motion right at the start. And I'll be able to show a little bit more about what this means. Third is submitting outbound referrals proactively. Look, in the previous slide, I also mentioned there is about 500,000 partners on Microsoft. So how do you stand out? The way to stand out with Microsoft is actually showing intent earlier on by sharing your pipeline, sharing your opportunities with them through an automated fashion. Of course, Clazar helps with that. But what that does is that gets the attention on the internal sellers on Microsoft, and Microsoft starts looking at you as a company who wants to do deep work with Microsoft, and then things start moving in the right direction. Fourth is responding to referrals quickly and consistently. This is very critical because think of it as the co-sell motion as your way of using word of mouth across the entire Microsoft sellers community, and the word spread really fast if you are really leaned in, if you're fast, if you're consistent, if you have all your ducks in a row. So it's a lesser known fact. It's also more ignored by most of the ISVs, but the ISVs that do really, really well do this one thing also really critically well. Now, last but not the least is treating their PDM as a working partner. It's like a lot of the SDCs have a person on the Microsoft side, their PDM, who is their goals are literally to make you as the SDC make successful, right? You have to take them on a journey with you. You have to not just treat them as a person to share updates and stuff like that, but really help them understand who you are as a company, what are your goals, do a mapping exercise with them in terms of what are your goals as a company, how do they map to goals that they have internally, how do those map to Microsoft goals and stuff like that. And this is a very wide and vast topic. So maybe Kyle, if you can share some light in terms of from a Microsoft side how this works and how can the audience get the most out of the resources that we have on Microsoft side.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Trunal. Those are really great points here, and you've highlighted, I think, many of the key things partners should be thinking about. I would add that not every referral necessarily needs to be submitted, right? Think strategically about this. Microsoft, as you just said, like there are a lot of partners, there's a lot of competition in the market, and time is short, right? So think strategically about how you leverage a PDM if you have one. I think I see a lot of partners be successful when they do regular, maybe quarterly pipeline reviews together to understand what are those opportunities, what's the timeline look like, have they been, are they qualified leads? Not every lead necessarily should be something that you ask Microsoft to engage in unless you've done the upfront work. And I think that's where partner leaders, alliance leaders, kind of working intermediately between Microsoft and their own sales organizations can really add some value in getting those sellers within the software companies to understand, how they can kind of take that opportunity to the next level and prepare it to be a great opportunity to co-sell with Microsoft. So I think there's a little bit of work that can be done up front. Like I said, quarterly pipeline reviews are something that's kind of a best practice I've seen with many partners that are successful. And so I think those couple of additional points would be really important for partners to think about.
That's fantastic. That's such a good point and a great segue into going deeper into each one of those. So let me just forward to the next slide here. And this talks about building collaterals for sellers, not just the buyers. So like your marketing one pager typically looks like what the product does, features and capabilities, ROI and customer outcomes, your pricing and packaging. Perhaps there's like a calculator on your website that lets your buyers calculate what the actual ROI is. But seller ready collateral is slightly different with a different goal and a purpose in mind, and you have to really realize and you have to enable your product marketing team to think from that angle. For example, which Azure services you pair with, which segments and verticals do you win in, the problem in the customer's language, MAC eligibility and what that specifically means, and who to contact. And this is the most critical one, I would say. Who to contact and how fast can you respond, right? Because once you have the attention of a Microsoft seller, you want to make sure that you're capturing that attention and you're really driving that conversation to full completion, right? So some of these things are guidelines in terms of how you build your seller ready collateral. working off of your marketing one page. And the question the seller is really asking is, why should I bring this up in my next customer meeting, right? So what you have to do is, through your collateral, through your ease of information sharing with them, when the seller walks into the next customer meeting, it should be very easy for them to bring you in as a potential partner to solve a problem that the seller sees right in front of them. So this is really critical. This is step one. And this is what Kyle was talking about, treating your PDM as a working partner. And as Kyle mentioned, like, sharing pipeline, not just wins, like update your PDM on deals in progress, not just closes. It helps them understand where to direct the field attention. Loop them into active accounts. Like, if Microsoft is already an account and you're entering in a pre-sales conversations, bring in your PDM early. This is where your relationship with the PDM comes in handy. Like, if you only talk to them, let's say once in 6 months and via email, you haven't really invested in that relationship. But if you have, like, let's say quarterly business reviews, pipeline reviews, you share updates asynchronously and synchronously with them on a regular basis, then that relationship becomes deeper. Ask for specific introductions, like target regional vertical sellers, not just general visibility. A specific ask gets specific results, whereas if you spray and pray your asks, usually that is very difficult to get the attention on anyone on the other end. And sending win wires, like sending a win wire after every close, like customer segment, use case, Azure services use, deal size, time to close, all these metrics. So as you share, that gets the seller's attention, that gets the PDM's attention, and they can use that as an ammo to promote you within Microsoft. And I think there was a question in like, what responses and benchmarks should we aim for with referrals? Like, this is a general good guideline that I would suggest, where within less than 4 hours, there's an internal alert fired. At least the same day, you have to send an acknowledgement to the seller. Within next 24 hours, full qualification is complete, and then ongoing, you must keep the seller in the loop. And there's lots of coordination, there's lots of different pieces, you may have different communication systems internally, so orchestrating this entire play is a bit of a challenge. But there's a method to the madness, which I can give you a glimpse of, which is currently, like, what you could do is you can connect your partner center referral intake directly to your CRM with automatic routing to the right AE. Like, just remove the friction from start to finish, and bring the Microsoft sellers closer to your team in a very seamless fashion, as fast as possible. Close the loop with the seller on every referral, whether it is accepted, closed, or perhaps if it's not the right fit. Like, no matter what the outcome is, make sure you're communicating with the seller. So this is very, very critical as well. And submitting outbound referrals, right? As Kyle talked about, like, you have a good business, you have a product out there that your customers are wanting, and just make sure that you are sharing that visibility with the Microsoft sellers, and be really thoughtful about what you want to upload, how you want to position is. Coastal is a two-way motion. And most ISVs only pay defense in many cases. They're like, okay, I uploaded 20 opportunities, now I'm waiting for Microsoft to send me a few. It doesn't work that way. It's not one-to-one. You do your part, you focus on the inputs, and then slowly but surely, as the flywheel starts working, you can come back and then start getting opportunities from Microsoft. So first is visibility. Your solution appears in Microsoft Seller Tools for accounts you're already working on. Account intelligence is a good one. The process surfaces whether target accounts have Azure consumption commitment or not. Active referral submission signals. You've already invested in relationships. It's not just the traction. Is a good one to showcase to Microsoft sellers. And in terms of momentum, consistent referral activity builds a track record that makes future collaboration a lot easier to start and maintain as well. The next one is the MAC eligibility. It is extremely critical as well. MAC is the reason why the Azure marketplace is so popular and so powerful. It is the enterprise customers commit. Like, what is a MAC? Just in two sentences, enterprise customers commit to spending a set amount on Azure. They actively look for solutions that count towards that commitment, and your IP co-sell eligible offer qualifies for that commitment. So it's a win-win situation on both the sides. So first, what I would highly recommend is train your sales team to raise it in enterprise conversations early on, not at the end, but very earlier on. Second is feature it explicitly in your marketplace listing description. So it's a no-brainer when a buyer looks at your solution on the marketplace. And third is include it in your seller one pager under why now. Our solution counts towards your Azure commitment can shift the conversation with a CFO who's 2 months from a contract end, right? So there's lots of these opportunities that all of a sudden open up when you ground the conversation in Mac eligibility. And strategy alone is not the problem. Like what we talked so far is a lot about how the strategy works, some of the pieces that you can do. Most coastal programs underperform because of the operational pieces are disconnected. Like I've seen this over and over and over again. Like the opportunity exists out there, it is there for the taking. But a lot of the time where ISVs and SDCs fumble and struggle is the operational excellence that you need to bring, the rigor that you need to bring to a program like this, where you need to be really making sure that the program is working as smooth as possible. Like for example, partner center referrals not connected to CRM, there's friction, PDM relationships lives in one person's inbox, sometimes they respond, sometimes you respond, doesn't work that way. Mac eligibility noted on a checklist but never communicated into sales, never really a part of the sales motion and the sales DNA of the company. Referrals expire without anyone noticing, stuff like that. These are each individually, these are small things. They appear like small things on paper, but they can have a big impact when fixed properly. So what to fix? First is clear ownership. Someone owns each motion, and there's a person internally who's primarily responsible to making this program a success. So that's step number one. Second is making sure that all your systems are connected, like your partner center, your CRM, your AEs, your communication tools like a Teams. They're all connected into one cohesive system, and it's just building consistent habits. It's not a one-time flash in the pan. You have to make sure that these behaviors are rewarded, enforced, talked about internally in your teams on a regular basis. That way eventually you can build emotion and habit that just sticks with the organization. So this is really critical in terms of the operations. We at Clazar help with a lot of these things. So you don't have to build about, I think about building these integrations, connectors, bringing the expertise and stuff like that. We have lots of services also available where if you're just standing up your team and you just want to try it out initially before you build up your own internal team, our team can come in and take care of this on your behalf from start to finish as well. So lots of options available on our side. So what I would say is, if I were in your shoes, and if you went back to your desk and if you said, all right, I just attended this webinar from Microsoft, I want to take an action. Here are the three things that you can act on today as you go back. First is audit your co-sell one pager from a seller's perspective. The slide that I had given that had the diff between a marketing collateral and a partner facing collateral. Take a look at that and just ask yourself one question: why should I bring this up in my next meeting? Does it answer that question? If not, that's where I would start. That's step one. Second, pull your referrals response times from 30 days forwards. If your average is over than 24 hours, fixing that process is the most immediate lever you can have. That way, it'll start building momentum. So second. Third is, to Kyle's point, schedule a working session with your PDM if you have one. Come with 3 recent wins, a specific region where you want introductions in, your 90-day pipeline target. Have a deeper strategic discussion with you. Show them what your goals are. Ask them how they can help in reaching those goals. Ask them about what resources perhaps you can avail from Microsoft side. Stuff like that. If you did these 3 things and if you found a good working motion just this week, I would consider that as a great start. And as you go deeper and deeper into your motion, if you're needing additional help, we at Clazar would be absolutely delighted to help you on this journey as well. So with that, happy to go to questions, and let's see if there's any questions from the audience.
Really, really fantastic points there, and Trunal, and a great presentation. Thank you so much for walking everybody through that. We do have a number of questions that have come in as you've been talking. I think the first one you kind of touched on your last slide there. What response time benchmarks should we aim for with referrals? You mentioned less than 24 hours as a strong benchmark, and an action item that people can take right away. Anything else you'd add on that in terms of response time?
I mean, I would say like the sooner the better. Like, I mean, what we see, the top of the pyramid, the STCs who do it well, they have it fully automated, where the moment a referral comes through, there's a notification sent to internal teams via their internal communication channels, whether it be Teams or Slack or email. The some SDCs go to the level of also automatically accepting the referral on an automated fashion, then engaging with the seller, so stuff like that. But the sooner that you can do based on your specific philosophy, working with Microsoft, the better it is.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, you start by doing some things small to get traction, and then either leveraging tools like Clazar or other automation to really start to scale that process and get that motion going. Another question: how do Microsoft sellers decide which marketplace partners to engage with first?
Yes, very interesting question. And I've seen a spectrum of things across the field. And Kyle, I would love your feedback here as well, since you've also seen a lot of these things over the years. But what I've seen is a partner who is helping them reach their goals is what they are interested in, having a deeper conversation. For example, what does if you have an ACR that you can attach to your Microsoft solution, that usually gets their attention. If you have a specific a pain point that they have, that you have uncovered while talking with the prospect, if you can take that to the Microsoft seller, and it helps them position this in a broader strategy that they are driving with the end customer, that helps as well. So seen some of these things. What have you seen, Kyle, and what can you guide the audience in terms of this question?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely agree. I think a lot of partners are always talking about what's our better together story, right? It's not just here's my product. It's important to show the ACR and the value there, but also like how does this pair well and complement other Microsoft products and Azure products, right? And how can we work together to build that complete solution for our customers together? So that's, I think, always top of mind. Another question's come in: what signals do sellers look for before they trust a partner enough to introduce them to a customer?
Yeah, fantastic question also. And there's various ways to make this happen. But first is any customer success story that you have previously, those always land well. Like if you have any customer wins, if you have any case studies, if you have showcased how you made some of the other customers successful on the Microsoft platform, including marketplaces, that lands really, really well. If the case study that you have is in the specific vertical as this specific seller's attention, that would land even more. So the more specific you get, the more public information you can share with the seller directly, that lands well, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems simple, right? Like just doing a quick win wire. You might do it for your own organization to show that you've successfully, closed co-sell opportunities with Microsoft. But then I think, that's valuable as well within Microsoft. We love win wires. Those get shared. PDM might take what you provide to them and maybe amplify that within Microsoft internally. And that helps to start gain that traction, that visibility, right, that you're looking for within the organization and across different field sellers who are responsible for other customer accounts that you may be targeting. Great question coming in here. What is the best way to introduce ourselves to Microsoft sellers without being too promotional?
Yeah, great question again. I think like the answer for this question roots in just in general the way humans work and the way humans operate. Like you really have to put yourself in the shoe of the seller. and really understand what is it that he or she is looking for when they receive a notification from you, right? What do they care about? Like, is this a specific customer? Is it a specific outcome? Is it specific metric that they're trying to hit? And you kind of have to have that understanding of what's going to help you, um, help them reach their goals. So think of, we always think of Microsoft sellers as partners, but also as our customers, because our job is to not just serve the end customer, but our job is also to serve the Microsoft sellers in a way that we are helping them reach their goals. Once you change that mind shift, your collateral needs to reflect that. Like, you need to have enough things in your collateral that within one glance they should be able to determine whether they want to engage with you or not. If you have if you're too like marketing content and too hand wavy stuff on your collateral, I've seen Microsoft sellers getting turned off. That's one. Secondly, the keywords really matter a lot, where Microsoft like operates with specific Microsoft terminology like ACR, MBS, tracker, all these good things, right? So showing your knowledge about these keywords and showcasing them in your collateral goes a long way.
Yeah, I think it's important, right, to both be detailed in the collateral that you're providing, the resources that Microsoft sellers are going to be looking at, and also in the referrals that you're sharing, right? Like those shouldn't just be a simple, here's the account, here's the value that we're looking at, but really get detailed about the status of the opportunity and where things stand and how the specific ask. I think you hit on that earlier in the presentation. Come with very specific asks. Are there any indicators that will show us that co-sell is gaining traction before revenue shows up?
Oh, so good. This is a good one too. Yeah, I think what the question is really asking is, what are the leading indicators, right? Because what happens typically is you are uploading opportunities, you are creating collaterals, you are talking to the Microsoft sellers, you are doing all of this, but it feels like it's a lot of work before something shows up on the other side, right? So here's some of the indicators that I look at. First is, are your Microsoft sellers even getting engaged with you or not? Like, that's the step one. You've built collateral, you've uploaded a few opportunities, you have started this motion. What kind of feedback are you getting from the Microsoft sellers? So that's step one. And that is something that you control. It's completely on your side, so you can really judge that. That's one. Secondly, if you can see that influenced revenue based off of your existing deals that you're uploading and co-selling with Microsoft, are they actually getting bigger or not? Because if they are, which means there is a traction, there is some kind of attraction internally at Microsoft that is driving this motion for you, right? And your internal motion is also working. So those are the two indicators I would say. Third is not an indicator; it's a guidance that I've seen. Third is, I've always seen the companies that do this well are the companies set expectations with their leadership beforehand, where they go in and say, "Hey, look, I'm going to do all of this work. There's no switch that I can turn on and say like, hey, Microsoft, make it rain for me." Right? It doesn't work. None of these GTM channels work that way. So what you have to believe in is, you have to believe in that, okay, if I did these steps, I'm going to do this for like 3, 6, 8 months, maybe perhaps even a year. I'm going to start tracking these metrics. I'm going to need some investment on my side. And once I do that, like, I'll bring back some of these early indicators so that we can tweak our motion. Every ISV is different. Every relationship is different. Every motion is different. So you have to really test. But for that, I need this time. If you just tried something for a month and went back and said, all right, this is not working, it's not worth investing anybody's time in this. So having that conversation upfront with your leadership is extremely critical. And I've seen that motion being successful more often than not when this conversation, when this, if you call, air cover exists. That way you as an alliance leader can focus on the job of striking a really good deep partnership with Microsoft.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you really hit a key point that could be an entire additional session. We might have to bring you back on in a future month to dive into, like, how do I get leadership, right, to buy in. And a lot of it has to do with doing the little things that you've talked about today up front, getting those processes in place, and then being able to share that with your leadership to get their buy-in and make it more than just a kind of a side project, make it really about a full co-sell motion with Microsoft and the value it brings for both organizations. Another question, kind of related, what are the best ways to stay visible to sellers over time, not just during a launch or kind of an initial start of sales?
Yeah, so in the slide that I showed, what does good engagement look like? There's the 4 hours, 24 hours, same day, and then the ongoing engagement. And ongoing engagement doesn't have to be just tactical over email, right? Microsoft has fantastic events. There's lots of opportunities to engage. Yeah, this is a perfect slide. Thank you. There's lots of opportunities for you to engage with the Microsoft sellers at a personal, deeper level, like, and going on, visiting them in their offices, showcasing some of the new product launches that you've done. That might be useful for them, right? So all of these different avenues, again, you have to treat Microsoft sellers as your customers, and the way you try to engage your customers, showcase who you are, what your product is. Similarly, you have to do the same thing with Microsoft sellers as well, so that they can feel a part of you and feel that connection to bring you into a lot of their deals.
Okay. Now a pretty challenging questions just come in of, we've done many of these things already. What should we fix first if our motion is not producing the results we're looking for?
Yeah, it is a challenging question. And I think, like, without knowing the specifics, it's very, very difficult to answer at a blanket level. But what I would say is the following. Like, if you've done all these things and if you say that the motion is not working, I would first love to understand what does it mean by the motion not working. Is like, were the goals set properly? Was the expectation set properly or not? Because whenever we've seen that a customer comes back to us and says, hey, this is not really working, what we've actually found out is that the expectation of what they should have done for them in the first place was not correct. And so when that expectation is not met, the project feels like a failure. So step one is understanding, like, what does the outcome was aligned internally at the organization. And it's a journey, right? It's not like, okay, I get live and today and in 1 week I start getting referrals. It's never that. There's various ways to extract value for your organization and by partnering with Microsoft. But what I would say is, if you think this motion is not working, I would peel back some. I would go back to the drawing board and start small again. Like, take some of the sellers that have responded to you, take some of the conversations that you have internally had about what the goals are, and set achievable goals to restart. Gain the confidence of the organization internally and confidence of the sellers externally for Microsoft. Really build that one champion, literally just one champion. Don't go for 100, 200, 10, not even 10. Just find out your one core champion at Microsoft, work with them in a very deep capacity, and figure out, like, what is it that's working, not working for them. Once you have figured that out, once you feel like, okay, this is a good success that I can repeat for lots of Microsoft sellers, then start to scale, but be very careful and thoughtful and observe all the metrics as you're scaling. That is the right way to scale. And that would be my approach, my recommendation, if you think the motion is not working.
Yeah, really, really great advice. I mean, don't be afraid, right, to analyze what you've got right now and where maybe you can take a couple steps to revamp those collateral or your approach, and really do the work to align those goals with your own leadership. And then, as you said, like, is that a realistic goal? Maybe you work with the PDM and make sure that both sides are on the same page. What seller-focused collateral works best? What kind of content do sellers actually want from partners?
Yeah, like, that also depends on at what stage you want the seller to be engaged. If the seller is already engaged, they have already built the trust with you. You can send them some long form content to read, to share, because they have that trust and that willingness to invest in you. But upfront, what I've seen is really literally a one pager of what you do. Are you Mac eligible or not? What is your solution? What are some of the customer stories, quotes that your customers have said? Literally just a one pager that is very Microsoft branded, specific with Microsoft keywords. If you share that I've seen work best. Like, Kyle, is there any other guidance from your side internally from Microsoft?
I think you hit it on the head there. I think that's really sound advice. And we've got one more question that I think we want to make sure we've got some time for. If you could give marketplace partners just one rule for working with Microsoft sellers, what would it be?
Oh, it's a tough one. There's so many there's so many things come to my mind, but I would say learning the language and incentive of the Microsoft sellers, I would say that is the top guidance that I would suggest. Like once you start speaking their language, once you really understand what their incentives are, motivations are, everything else falls in place after that. Then you can scale, your collateral start making sense, you start uploading the right deals and right opportunities, you start getting the right everything falls in place. But it really starts with understanding the sellers as a customer.
Yeah, I would agree and say build the relationships, right? Don't treat it just as a transactional, checking a box to try to do this and the other thing, but stay human and engage. So yeah, this has been really fantastic, Trunal. Thank you so much for the presentation, for your time today. Really fantastic sound advice for partners at any stage, really, in the process. So we're going to wrap it up today. I think we've covered a number of questions. Obviously, for anybody that might be watching the recording of this, we welcome your questions within our marketplace community. I'll put the link back up there, aka.ms/community/marketplace. So again, welcome your continued questions on this topic. It's a really key topic for customers and for partners to understand this. And again, Trunal, thank you so much for coming back and joining us again today. Really sound advice. And with that, I think we'll close out and have a wonderful day, everybody.
Thanks, Kyle. Thanks for having me.
Take care.